The notification lit up my phone at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Transfer received, $300 note. I'm only sending money for my daughter. You're old enough to take care of yourself. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the message thread above it. The one I'd sent 3 hours earlier, the one that said I needed help, that rent was due, that groceries were running low, that my sister needed her share too. She was still figuring things out, still in her senior year. 150 a week for me, 300 for her. That's what I'd asked for. I read the note again. My daughter. Not our daughter. Not your sister. Just my daughter. The coffee shop hummed around me, all grinding espresso machines and laptop keyboards clicking. I'd been here since morning, working on a presentation for tomorrow's client meeting. My second month at Harrison and Lee, and I was still trying to prove I belonged there. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my sister. Got the money. Thank you so much. Love you. I typed back quickly. No problem. See you this weekend? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Can't. Dad's taking me shopping for interview clothes. Big opportunity at his friend's firm. Dad. She'd been calling him that since she was 3. I set the phone face down and returned to my laptop, but the words on the screen blurred together. The spreadsheet cells became little boxes, each one a memory I'd been trying to keep filed away. I was 7 when Mom married Richard. He showed up at our apartment one Saturday morning with a toolbox and fixed the leaky faucet Mom had been complaining about for months. Then he made us pancakes. Chocolate chip for me because I mentioned I liked chocolate. He noticed things like that back then. For 2 years, he'd take me to the park while Mom worked her weekend shifts at the hospital. He'd push me on the swings and tell me stories about the buildings downtown because he was an architect and could point at any skyscraper and tell you why it stood up or why it would fall down someday. Then Mom got pregnant. I remember the day they told me. I was 9. Richard sat me down at the kitchen table with this huge smile and said I was going to be a big sister. He asked if I was excited. I said yes because that's what you're supposed to say, and because part of me really was excited. I'd always wanted a sister. What I didn't know was that getting a sister meant losing whatever I'd had before. The shift wasn't immediate. That's the thing about slow poison. You don't notice it until you're already sick. When Emma was born, everyone cooed over her. Mom and Richard were exhausted but glowing. I helped where I could. I was good at helping. I'd bring diapers, warm bottles, sing to her when she cried at night. Richard would thank me, pat my head, tell me I was a natural. But somewhere around Emma's first birthday, the temperature changed. I'd come home from school and start telling Richard about my day. I'd gotten an A on my history project, or my teacher said my essay was the best in class, and he'd glance up from Emma with this look. Not quite a frown, more like his face was tired of holding a smile. He'd nod, say, "That's nice, sweetie," and turn back to Emma, who was babbling and reaching for his glasses. At dinner, I'd serve myself pasta, and he'd watch my plate like I was committing some kind of crime. When I reached for seconds, his jaw would tighten. Mom didn't say anything. She was always so tired, balancing work and a toddler and trying to keep Richard happy. I learned to take smaller portions, to eat faster, to leave the table before anyone could comment. By the time I was 12, I'd mastered the art of being invisible. I kept my room spotless because Richard would shake his head and sigh dramatically if he walked past and saw clothes on the floor. I stopped talking about school unless directly asked, because his eyes would glaze over after about 10 seconds. I made myself useful with Emma, helping her learn to read, playing endless games of dress-up, braiding her hair before school. Emma adored me. That was something at least. But Mom started with the comments. "Claire, did you let Emma have candy before dinner? She's being impossible now." "Claire, why didn't you make sure Emma finished her homework? I just got an email from her teacher." "Claire, you need to be more responsible. You're the older sister." I was responsible. I was so responsible, I felt like I was 50 years old at 13. When Emma threw a tantrum because I wouldn't let her stay up past her bedtime, Mom came downstairs with this exhausted, disappointed look and said, "What did you do to upset her?" Not, "What happened?" Not, "Is everything okay?" What did I do? I learned to apologize even when I hadn't done anything wrong. It was easier than trying to explain. And high school was my escape route. I applied to a boarding school 2 hours away, full scholarship. Richard was thrilled. One less mouth to feed, one less person taking up space in his house. Mom cried a little, but agreed it was a good opportunity. Emma was 9 when I left. She clung to me the morning I packed my bags, asking why I had to go, promising she'd be good if I stayed. I told her it wasn't about her, that I'd visit, that we'd talk all the time. Richard watched from the doorway, arms crossed, not offering to help carry anything to the car. At school, I became someone new, someone who didn't apologize for existing. I made friends, joined clubs, threw myself into academics. I called home once a week, talked to Emma, kept things brief with Mom. Richard never asked to speak to me. College was supposed to be freedom. I got into a state school 3 hours from home. Good program, decent scholarship, a chance to finally build something that was mine. Emma was starting high school. She'd grown into this bright, funny kid with Richard's charm and Mom's determination. Everyone loved her. Teachers, friends, random people at the grocery store. She called me constantly that first semester, told me about her classes, her friends, some boy who liked her. I'd stay on the phone for hours, lying on my dorm bed, laughing at her stories. Then Richard cut me off. The monthly transfer Mom had been sending, $500 to cover food and books and everything else financial aid didn't, just stopped. I called Mom. She answered on the fourth ring, sounding distracted. "Hey, sweetie, what's up?" "The money didn't come through this month." A pause. "Oh, right, about that." My stomach dropped. "About what?" Richard and I talked, and with Emma starting to think about colleges, we need to save more. And you're doing fine, aren't you? You have that work-study job. Mom, work-study barely covers my books. You're resourceful, Claire. You've always figured things out. There it was. The thing that had been hanging between us for years, finally said out loud. You've always figured things out, because we couldn't be bothered to help. What about Emma? I asked. Are you cutting her off too when she gets to college? Emma's situation is different. She's your real daughter? Silence. Claire, that's not fair. You're right. Nothing about this is fair. I hung up. I picked up more shifts. Tutoring, waitressing, anything that paid. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches and stopped going out with friends because I couldn't afford to split appetizers. Emma didn't know. I made sure of that. When she called, I kept my voice light, asked about her life, pretended everything was fine, because it wasn't her fault. None of this was her fault. But it hurt, watching her post photos on social media, her and Richard at father-daughter events, shopping trips with Mom, family dinners at nice restaurants. Family, the three of them, never four. I graduated in 3.5 years, a semester early because I couldn't afford to stay longer. I moved to the city, crashed on a friend's couch, interviewed everywhere. Harrison and Lee offered me a position in their consulting division. Entry level, but it was a real salary. Benefits, a chance to prove myself. I found a tiny studio apartment, spent my first paycheck on a mattress and a desk from IKEA, and called Emma to tell her I'd made it. She squealed, said she was proud of me, said Richard was proud too. I didn't correct her. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Emma. Also, Mom wants to know if you can come to my graduation. It's in May. May, 4 months away. I'd have to take time off work, buy a train ticket, find somewhere to stay since I obviously wasn't welcome in their house. I'll try, I typed back. Please? It won't be the same without you. My throat tightened. I'll be there. Because I would. Because Emma mattered. Because maybe if I showed up enough, did enough, proved I wasn't a burden, things would change. Except they wouldn't. I knew that now. The transfer note had made it perfectly clear. I lasted until Friday before I called Mom. She answered on the second ring. Claire, how are you? I'm fine. Got your husband's message? Oh. Her voice went careful. About the money. About how I'm not his daughter. He didn't mean it like that. How did he mean it, Mom? A long pause. I could hear Emma in the background, laughing at something on TV. He's been stressed with work, Mom said finally. And you're doing so well. We just thought. You thought I didn't need help because I always figure it out? You do, though. You always have. Because I had to, my voice cracked. Because you let me. That's not fair, Claire. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You keep saying that. But you know what's not fair? Growing up in a house where I had to earn my right to exist. Where I had to be perfect and invisible and useful all at once. Where I raised your daughter because you were too busy keeping your husband happy. I did my best. Mom's voice went tight. You don't understand how hard it was. After your father left, I had nothing. Richard gave us stability. He gave you and Emma stability. I was just part of the package deal you wish you could have left behind. How can you say that? Because it's true. I was crying now, hot, angry tears streaming down my face in the middle of the coffee shop. People were starting to stare. Because I've spent my entire life trying to make you love me as much as you love her, and it's never going to happen. I do love you. But not enough. Never enough. I hung up. The weekend came. I ignored 3 calls from Mom, 2 from Emma. I cleaned my apartment, went grocery shopping, made a meal plan for the week. I was good at plans. Good at being practical. Sunday evening, someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the peephole and froze. Richard stood in the hallway, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. I almost didn't open the door, almost pretended I wasn't home. But I was tired of running. Tired of being careful. I opened the door. Claire, he cleared his throat. Can I come in? Why? I want to talk. About how I'm not your daughter? His face went red. Your mother told me what you said. I came to explain. Go ahead. He glanced past me into the apartment. Can we sit down? I stepped aside. He entered, taking in the sparse furniture, the neatly organized space. I watched him notice everything. The absence of family photos, the single plate in the dish rack, the unopened mail on the counter. He sat on my couch. I stayed standing. I didn't mean to hurt you, he started. But you did. I know, and I'm sorry. I crossed my arms. Are you? Because it seemed pretty clear. You have a daughter. Past tense implies I never counted. He rubbed his face. It's complicated. Explain it to me. He looked up, and for a second I saw something raw in his eyes. Something almost like pain. When I married your mother, I wanted to be a family. I really did. You were this sweet kid, and I thought I could be a father to you. But then Emma came. He swallowed hard. And she was mine. Biologically, legally, everything. And I looked at her and I felt something I'd never felt before. This overwhelming, terrifying love. And I looked at you and I felt nothing. Guilt. His voice broke. I felt guilty because I knew I'd never love you the same way, and the guilt made me angry, and the anger made me push you away, and by the time I realized what I was doing, the damage was done. I stared at him. After all these years, after all the silence and the cold shoulders and the careful distance, this was his explanation. Guilt. So you made me feel like garbage because you felt bad about not loving me? I know how it sounds. Do you? My voice rose. Do you have any idea what it's like to grow up in a house where you're constantly aware that you're tolerated but not wanted? Where every good grade, every chore, every time you bite your tongue is you trying to justify your existence? I never meant. You did, though. You absolutely meant it. Maybe not consciously, but you made your choice every single day. He stood, his hands shaking. I came here to apologize, to try to make it right. How? How are you going to make it right? He pulled out his wallet, extracted a check, held it out to me. I looked down. $5,000. This doesn't fix anything, I said. I know, but it's a start. I took the check, not because I needed the money. I'd meant what I said on the phone, I was figuring it out. But because I wanted him to see me take it and still not forgive him. Thank you, I said flatly. You can leave now. Claire, leave. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. For what it's worth, I am proud of you. The job, the apartment, how you've built a life. You didn't need me, and that's good. Yeah, I said. It is good, because I learned early that I couldn't count on you. He nodded slowly and left. I stood in my empty apartment, holding a check for $5,000, and I didn't feel victorious or vindicated. I just felt tired. The twist came 2 weeks later. Emma called me at work. I almost didn't answer. I was in the middle of a meeting, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Claire? Her voice was small. Em? What's wrong? Can you come home, please? What happened? Just, please, I need you. I told my boss it was a family emergency, caught the next train. The whole ride, my mind spun through possibilities. Accident, illness, something with Mom. Emma met me at the station. Her eyes were red, her face blotchy. I pulled her into a hug. What's going on? I found something. She pulled away, wiping her nose. Going through Dad's office for a tax document Mom needed. There was a file. With your name on it? My stomach dropped. What kind of file? Letters from your real dad. The ground tilted. What? He's been writing you, for years. Since you were 12, Mom and Dad have been keeping them from you. I couldn't breathe. How many letters? Maybe 50? I didn't count. But Claire, he's been trying to reach you this whole time. We drove to the house in silence. Mom and Richard weren't home. Some event for Richard's firm. Emma led me to the study, pulled out a cardboard file box from the bottom drawer of Richard's desk. Inside were envelopes, dozens of them, all addressed to me, none of them opened because they'd never been given to me. I picked up the first one. The postmark was from 13 years ago. My hands shook as I opened it. Dear Claire, I know I have no right to write to you after everything. But I want you to know I think about you every day. I made mistakes, so many mistakes, and I'm trying to be better. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. Love, Dad. There was a phone number at the bottom. I opened another letter, then another, each one a little piece of my father trying to reach through the silence. Explaining why he left, depression, addiction, shame, describing his recovery, asking about my life, saying he loved me, saying he was sorry. Emma sat beside me on the floor, crying quietly. Why would they keep these from me? I whispered. I don't know. But I did know, because if I'd had contact with my real father, I might have had someone on my side, someone who chose me, and that would have disrupted the perfect little family they were trying to build. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed the number from the most recent letter. It rang 3 times. Hello? The voice was older, rougher than I remembered, but it was him. Dad? My voice cracked. It's Claire. A sharp intake of breath. Claire? Oh my God. Claire, I've been trying to reach you for years. I thought you didn't want... I never got your letters. They kept them from me. Silence. Then quietly. All of them? All of them. Jesus. His voice broke. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have tried harder. I should have... Can I see you? Yes, God, yes. When? Now, I'll text you the address. I'm 2 hours away. I'll leave right now. I sat in my apartment at midnight with my father, my real father, drinking tea and talking about 13 years of missing time. He was thinner than I remembered, grayer. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. But when he looked at me, I saw something I hadn't seen in Richard's face in over a decade. Recognition. Not of who I could be or what I could do for him, just recognition of me. I got sober 7 years ago, he said. Before that, I was a mess. I don't blame your mother for leaving. I don't blame her for wanting to protect you from me. But you got better. I did. And I tried to tell her. Tried to show her I'd changed. But by then, she'd built a new life. And I think she was worried that if you had a relationship with me, it would disrupt things with Richard. So she chose him. She chose stability. I can understand that, even if it hurts. I set down my mug. I spent so long thinking there was something wrong with me, that I wasn't good enough, wasn't lovable enough. Claire. He reached across the table, took my hand. There was never anything wrong with you. You were perfect. You are perfect. I'm the one who failed you, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for that if you'll let me. I squeezed his hand, tears streaming down my face. Okay, I whispered. Okay. I didn't go to Emma's graduation. Instead, I sent her a gift card and a long letter explaining why. Explaining that I loved her, but I couldn't keep showing up for a family that had never shown up for me. She called, crying. begging me to reconsider. I held firm. I need to take care of myself now, Em. I've spent my whole life taking care of everyone else. But you're my sister. I am, and I'll always be your sister. But I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep you warm. She didn't understand. Maybe someday she would. 6 months later, I sat in my new apartment. Bigger now, brighter, with my father helping me hang pictures. We'd been building our relationship slowly. Dinners every other week, phone calls, emails sharing articles or jokes or just checking in. It wasn't perfect. We were still learning each other, but it was real. My phone buzzed. A text from Richard. The money I gave you was from an account I'd been saving for you. For college originally. Then for after. I want you to know it was always yours. I was just too proud to give it to you before. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Thank you for telling me." But money was never the problem. I didn't wait for his response. Instead, I looked up at my father, who was holding a hammer and grinning at a slightly crooked picture frame. "What do you think?" he asked. "It's perfect," I said. And for the first time in years, I meant it.